We have all experienced a time when we could not communicate due to deafness. This is most definitely a communication barrier, which could result in detrimental misunderstandings or lack of communication at all. It is imperative that we as citizens recognize the importance of sign language. In this speech, I will discuss the history of sign language, how it is used to communicate, and the importance of sign language. American Sign Language developed approximately 200 years ago. There are many influences which resulted in American Sign Language. In 2007, Seal Lucas and Caroline McCaskill wrote a chapter about American Sign Language in the book entitled The New Encyclopedia of Southern Culture, Language. This chapter describes the founding of the first school for the deaf in 1817 in Hartford, Connecticut. Also, since it was partially founded by a teacher at a deaf institute in Paris, this caused French influence on the creation of sign language. So there are a lot of French influences that resulted in the sign language that we use today. Lucas and McCaskill's article from 2007 also discusses the structure of American Sign Language itself. This includes phonology, morphology, and syntax, which are all major keys in producing accurate communication with deaf individuals. Now that I have discussed the history of sign language, let me move on to my next point, which is how sign language is used to communicate. Sign language is used to communicate by forming hand gestures, each having their own very specific meaning. According to a chapter from the Little Book of Sign Language written by David Crystal in 2010, sign language is much more than simple gestures such as thumbs up or a high five. Sign language can actually be used to create complex sentences, stories, or even songs to provide the deaf community with a tool to communicate similarly to how hearing people can. Crystal's article from 2010 also provided details regarding how sentences are created using sign language. They are created much differently than we create our own sentences. We can convey the exact same messages, they're just created a lot differently. This is different from how our sentences are formed because they're mainly using nouns and verbs solely. So they take out adjectives and adverbs and things like that, and they only use nouns and verbs. Now that I've discussed how sign language is used to communicate, let me move on to my next point, which is the importance of sign language. Sign language is a very important type of communication that is vital for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. In 1987, ASL Linguistic and Lapide Dimensions was written by Ronnie Wilbur, where he described the complexity of sign language and its importance to provide accurate info throughout a disability. In 1987, Wilbur also wrote about the complexity of child language acquisition and its vitality to learning and enjoying life. For kids that are deaf or hard of hearing, it is important for them to start learning sign language early, or if they have siblings that have this disability. This helps them enjoy their life and enjoy growing up in their childhood. Sign language is an extremely important tool used to communicate effectively with deaf or hard of hearing individuals. Today, we discussed the basics of sign language. We discussed its French origin and history. We also looked at how words are actually communicated throughout sign language, including the complexity of the gestures. Lastly, we investigated the vitality of sign language to communicate effectively with disabled individuals. Although some individuals lack the sense of hearing, that does not mean that they cannot communicate with others or be a productive member of society. Thank you.